Please welcome to the stage founder of Cancer Fashionista, Melissa Berry.
Thank you so much. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight at the Sheen Center for Thought and Culture. And by the way, I just have to say you guys all look fabulous tonight. I'm thrilled to welcome you to the Pink Agenda's annual Health and Wellness Educational Symposium, TPA Talks. I'm Melissa Berry, and I'll be your host this evening. I know I'm not the only one excited to finally be back together after 2 long years. It's so great to be with all of you tonight. I, like many here, was touched by breast cancer in my early adult life. With a strong family history of the disease, I was tested for the BRCA gene at the age of 32. After testing positive for BRCA1, I was very closely monitored for several years, until I was diagnosed with stage 1 triple-negative breast cancer at the age of 42. When I began treatment 9 years ago, I grappled with a surreal, uncertain new reality. I struggled so much to look and feel my best, which made an already difficult experience going through chemo and surgery even more challenging. I scoured the internet for beauty advice for cancer patients and for niche products that might help with my recovery. At the time, these were really, really hard to come by. I remembered thinking to myself, where is the vogue of breast cancer? After I completed treatment, I created Cancer Fashionista, a blog with a social media presence to share my favorite tips and recommendations with others facing a diagnosis. I was blown away by the positive response and how it has grown into a hybrid of beauty, fashion, lifestyle resources for those being treated for breast cancer, as well as their caregivers. Over the years, I've had the privilege of meeting countless women who've been touched by the disease, who live their lives boldly and with integrity. I'm so grateful to be part of this incredible community. And just this past year, I launched my podcast, Dear Cancer, I'm Beautiful, and I was also recently named board chair for the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation, where I help my TNBC little sisters navigate their breast cancer experiences. Thank you. I love you guys so much, I really do. Through the power of social media and organizations like the Pink Agenda and the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, it's easier than ever to connect with people who understand what you're going through and who are just as passionate about making breast cancer history. The Pink Agenda's mission to engage tomorrow's generation to find tomorrow's cure truly resonates with me, especially because I'm the mother to 2 young adult daughters. I'm so very honored to be here. Tonight, we are fortunate to have a diverse lineup of speakers to discuss the latest developments in breast cancer research, innovative approaches to improving quality of life during and after treatment, and the importance of engaging every generation to help eradicate this disease. We'll also hear from survivors and thrivers, each with their own important story. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. Karen Popkin. I just got to tell you guys, it's not in the script. This is such an amazing lineup. I'm so excited for you to listen to every one of these incredible people. Karen Popkin is a licensed creative arts and board-certified musical therapist with over 25 years of experience. She is the program coordinator for creative arts and movement therapies at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. In her role, Karen uses the power of sound to encourage healing and improve comfort and quality of life for cancer patients and their families. Each music therapy session that Karen leads is unique, and she adapts to each patient's needs so that they can maximize their creativity and leave feeling calmer and more relaxed. And let me tell you, just being in the green room, I felt more calm just around her. She also helps lead dance and movement sessions. Over the years, she has helped to educate others about the impact of music therapy through participation in publications and academic conferences. As you may suspect, Karen is a multi-talented musician. In her spare time, she plays euphonium in the Manhattan Wind Ensemble and will play the guitar for us tonight. Presenting Do You Hear Me Now? Music Therapy and Empowerment, please welcome Karen Popkin to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's really a great honor to be here with you all tonight. I think I just have to untangle myself for a second. Okay, thank you. I feel a little bit like Henny Youngman. I don't know if anybody here knows who that was. He was a comedian who used to stand and tell jokes holding his violin. But I'm not that funny, and I can never remember jokes. So I'd just like to share with you a little bit about how music therapy works by introducing just one particular snippet. And I hope that you'll also join me in using your own voice in just a couple of minutes. So a lot of people are starting to become more familiar in the world about the field of music therapy, but many folks still have questions about what is it. So the real focus is that it's not performance. It is an interpersonal process where music is our main conduit for connecting to one another. And people connect through music in a variety of ways. It could be through the physical world, through their emotional states, cognitively and intellectually and spiritually. And we use music as a way to help improve health. So today I just want to talk about someone whose name we'll say is Anna, someone that I met in the hospital where I work at Memorial Sloan Kettering. Anna was, when I met her, approximately 49 years old. I don't remember the exact diagnosis of her breast cancer, but she did have brain metastases, which made it hard for her to express herself. She had aphasia and was having difficulty finding words and finishing her sentences. When I arrived at the room, she was there with a couple of family members. They were all very warm and welcoming. Anna smiled and let me know that she was definitely interested in having a music therapy visit. And her family members were actually happy that I came at that moment because they needed to step out to make some phone calls and take care of some things and did not want to leave her alone. So our timing was very good. When I first met Anna, I suggested that she might want to participate in a relaxation exercise. So she nodded in agreement, and I just began with a brief music-based meditation, focusing on the breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, my breath goes deep, and breathing out, my breath goes slowly. Breathing in, I open my body. Breathing out, I relax my body. And so on. This is just a very brief version of the meditation. But after breathing in and breathing out, we can allow ourselves to begin to sigh on the exhale. Maybe you can try that with me. Breathing in and letting it all go. And on the next exhale, just allow yourself to tone. Let any sound come out. Breathing in and release. So you can just hum to yourself and notice the vibration. You may even put one hand on your chest so you can feel it. And just take a breath whenever you need to and return to the hum. One more. Thank you. Thank you for doing that with me. Being able to, thank you. Being able to just take that moment with yourself to center and to feel that vibration is a little self-care technique that you can take home with you today. You can do it anywhere. You might even be on the bus, humming so softly that no one else can hear you. But it can be a great way if you're feeling a little bit nervous or anxious to just focus inward and find your anchor. So the reason that vocal work can be such an important part of music therapy, in addition to all the reasons why, if you can feel good to sing, if you're singing a familiar song that you really love, or just making your own voice heard. But there is also a physical aspect to the sound. This is a cymatic image of the human voice. Cymatics is a study, a physical study of sound waves that can be produced in a visual form. And our voices are important, our voices matter, our voices can be powerful. But for Anna, she was having a difficult time finding her voice. So as we continued on in our session, I was suddenly just struck by this notion to begin to sing something. I felt that she was trying to say something. I saw her mouth open, and there was some hesitancy or maybe inability for the sound to come out. So I just prompted her. I want, I need. Suddenly, Anna finished where I left off. I want to go home. And I sang it back to her. And she was smiling. And her family members had returned to the room, and they were standing at the door. And they heard her voice. And then we continued on singing. And we finished the session with a familiar song, something uplifting of her choice that allowed us all to share that music together. In the course of that session, that one moment when Anna got her voice back for that brief time, I felt that she was really reclaiming her ability to make her needs known, and that she was really connecting the mind and the body together, because all along she knew what she wanted to say. And one other thing I wanted to share with all of you right now is that we are in the midst of conducting a study comparing music therapy sessions with cognitive behavioral therapy. So if you or anyone that you know, a cancer survivor and thriver who may be experiencing anxiety and is interested in participating, please feel free to contact us. And I'm forever grateful for the people who participate in our music therapy sessions. I've gotten to know some amazing folks through my work. And I am also very grateful for my colleagues and all of the supports that we receive. I'm grateful for all of you who are here today, and I hope that you all come out of here singing tonight. Thank you so much.
Well, Karen, that was absolutely beautiful. In fact, I had to stop myself from going to a meditative state in the backstage area. It was beautiful. Thank you so much for this beautiful addition to our program. Our next speaker, Sally Wolf, is the founder and CEO of Lightworks, where she creates innovative professional development programs designed to help people find more meaning in both their jobs and their lives. Lightworks is the product of Sally's love for mentoring and nurturing, combined with her 2 decades of experience as a media executive, during which she developed growth strategies for major brands including Cosmopolitan, People Magazine, and Nickelodeon, and was also a creative incubator with Warner Media called 150. She was inspired to start Lightworks after being diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. The learnings from her journey, her extensive professional experience, and deep roots in positive psychology make Sally uniquely poised to help others be their authentic selves and bring their full selves to everything that they do. In her free time, Sally is an avid dancer, P.S. a pole dancer, and she's really amazing. I can attest to that. She's an active iPhone step counter and a loving auntie to 3 beautiful nieces and nephews. She's also a breast cancer survivor and thriver who has served on the advisory board of Mount Sinai's Dubin Breast Center. Sally is also a very, very dear friend of mine. We met a few years back at my very first meetup. She was my very first attendee, and we've been texting and making NYC dinner dates ever since. Here to present The Life Within the Darkness, please give a warm welcome to my beautiful, amazing, amazing friend, Sally Wolf.
I had just left my dance studio when my phone rang. Finally, I thought, seeing my oncologist's number, as the wait for these latest biopsy results felt particularly long to me. She greeted my hello with a rather chipper tone, so I, optimistic in that moment, said, "So it's not cancer, right?" To which she replied, "Well, it is." Standing there on 23rd Street, I felt paralyzed with fear. Although that was the 3rd time that I'd received a call of that sort, that was the one I dreaded most of all. The one that confirmed my cancer had spread beyond my breast to my hip. The one I believed would finally lead me to crumble because it changed the vocabulary. Metastatic, incurable, stage 4. And yet, amidst all of the chaos on the street around me, and even more so within me, I remember feeling grateful for the sunshine, a literal ray of light in a figuratively dark day, reminding me of one of the most unexpected things cancer had already taught me. Almost nothing is unilaterally light or dark, not even cancer. My first diagnosis arrived 2.5 years earlier, and while the 6 months of active treatment that followed were a whirlwind, they were filled with more love and support than I ever imagined possible. It was my body, but my family's cancer, and I never attended anything, no consult, no appointment, alone. My parents made countless trips back and forth between their house and my apartment. For almost 2 weeks after my surgery, my sister changed my bandages and helped me to shower. and my brother slept at my apartment and helped me to empty the 4 surgical drains that hung from my body. Friends redefined friendship, flying in to keep me company or on my couch. My boss, remembering my chemo schedule, texted me every other Wednesday. Some of the most beautiful moments of my life came during those months. And as I reached the end of treatment, I believed the worst was behind me, and my doctors did too. Until about 18 months later, when I got that call on 23rd Street. A call that brought news that felt terrifying and was full of so much darkness. And yet, even that day included so much light. I was with a friend when I got my oncologist call, so as I held the phone to my ear and sobbed on that busy street, there was a caring hand on my shoulder reminding me that I wasn't alone. My sister was nearby with my nephew, the little man who had made me an auntie 4 years earlier, and gave me a much-needed hug that afternoon. Before my friend and I continued walking further downtown, and I then met another close friend for more quality time and some amazing New York City pizza before joining my entire family at my sister's apartment. I have incredible pictures from throughout that day with friends and family. My favorites show me blowing up countless balloons for my nephew and nieces, smiling, laughing, loving, living. No day that includes that much love is void of any light, no matter how much darkness may live beside it. Life is often a both end, a light and a dark, all at once. The specifics of the both end may be unique to each of us, but we all know light and dark. It's the common humanity that connects us all, that enables us to grow through what we go through and become better able, with time, to step into the true afterglow of our challenges, or, in my case, to dance into them. I've been dancing for 16 years now. My diagnosis arrived about a decade into my dance journey, and I barely missed a single class throughout my treatment. I danced with surgical drains. I danced mere hours after completing my first chemo. I danced the day that I had my head shaved, and almost exactly 2 years later, the day I learned my cancer returned. I showed up in each of those moments as I was, not more, not less. And even when my body couldn't move the way my heart wanted it to, my teacher was there to remind me that I was fully there in all of my truth, all of my dark and all of my light. And that alone was something to be celebrated. And often those celebrations or dances involved a skirt, a whimsical, colorful, fun tutu. No matter how old I may get, I'll likely never outgrow tutus, or hearts or rainbows or unicorns or glitter. My sister has even kiddingly told me that when she wants to buy me a present, she asks her 4- and 6-year-old daughters, my nieces, if they like something. And if they do, she knows Auntie likely will too. My dance-inspired tutu collection has grown considerably over the past decade and a half. And earlier this year, I threw my favorite, a single tutu with all the colors of the rainbow, into my bag, hopped on the subway, and checked in with reception when I arrived at my destination. When it was finally my turn to enter the changing room, I pulled off my street clothes and pulled up that carefully chosen tutu. Glancing in the mirror before I returned to the hallway, I smiled big at the little bit of silliness, of salliness, I had packed in my bag and now wore on my body. And I even had a playlist in hand chosen especially for that day. And then the nurse called my name. You see, I wasn't at the studio for another dance class, but instead at the hospital for another scan, one I'd intentionally scheduled on February 22nd, 2/22/22, or as my inner child kindled the date, Tutu Day. I knew I wouldn't be able to dance or even move as I lay still in that narrow scan tube, but I also knew that simply wearing the tutu would still make me smile and make the experience more special. I might not get to choose all of these scans, how many or which ones or what the results are, but I can always control at least a small piece of it, what I wear, whether I bring music, and in those seemingly small slices of normalcy, I find so much genuine joy, a way to shine my true light when I make the experience as good as I can and in reflecting back, truly remember it as a special moment in my journey. And if I can do that in a scan, when I am genuinely scared, if I can be scared and also shine at the same time, be me at the same time, then that is win-win, not only for me, but also for the nurse or the technician or whoever else I encounter. And then those folks carry their smiles into whatever they have next. We hear so much about PTSD, but if we make a bell curve of resilience, PTG, which is post-traumatic growth, is achievable and much more common than we realize. And the best tool to get there is the choice to make meaning, to choose meaning in our stories. Not only the parts we've chosen, but also, and especially, the parts that were chosen for us, the twists and turns and shifts and scars. When we reflect back in a way in which we make meaning, we prime ourselves to grow through what we go through. Or, put another way, to find a lot of light within our most difficult darknesses. It's truly self-fulfilling in a powerful way. 4 years into this metastatic journey, I am constantly living with uncertainty, with the reminder of how precious life is and the fear that comes with that too. That tutu scan was one of 5 I had in the past 4 months, 3 in February, 2 more in April. And although I was incredibly lucky for all of them to come back NED, no evidence of disease, almost all of them had what I'm calling asterisks, things that popped or required follow-up imaging. And even NED, a term I'm so grateful to know as well, as most of us in this room know, it's not the same as cured. Although I live with great hope that I might hear that word one day, perhaps even on the heels of research being done by a fellow speaker tonight. And until then, I relish how lucky I've been even without a cure. Yes, my cancer came back and it spread, but how lucky am I that it only spread a little and that it's been super responsive to my medicine, a medicine first broadly approved by the FDA the year before I needed it. And beyond the good fortune in my body, cancer has gifted me countless silver linings alongside the scars, stepping into work that feels like my calling and stepping onto stages like TPA's tonight to raise awareness and take action for metastatic breast cancer, connecting with others in the deepest ways I've ever known, experiencing unique life moments, seeing my bald beauty featured in a Netflix documentary and on a Rockefeller Center flag, things that never would have happened without cancer. How we tell our stories matters, and our most important audience is ourself. Our neurons fire together each time we tell and retell our stories, and the meaning we choose to make, whether we describe things as ultimately serving us or simply as struggles that set us back, it matters. Neurons that fire together wire together. But just as surgeons can reconstruct our bodies, we have the power to reframe our thinking, to rewire our brains, to shift the stories and find the light. Each of us came here tonight with a story that connects us to this cause, whether as a patient, doctor, fundraiser, researcher, caregiver, relative, friend, or anything else. My greatest hope is that alongside the inevitable darkness we each know in these complicated cancer journeys, that we can all find light, even just a small spark, in moments we need it most. And on those days when it's toughest to find, in my experience, there is often someone else ready to provide it. My nephew is 8 now, and recently, unprompted, he told me I'm the most positive person he knows. I reflected on his words countless times since he shared them, because I've technically been sick, very sick, since before he turned 2. So all of his memories are from my time living with cancer, from years that have had much darkness, and yet his image of me is pure light. Finding the light doesn't discount the dark or the hardship or the fear. It simply says, alongside all of that, that we can still choose light, and that when we do, we can find a way to not only grow, but also glow as we go through whatever moments we are called to navigate within each of our lives. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage TPA President Nicole Seagrith.
Hi. Sally, thank you. That was absolutely amazing, and I think we can all use an extra light in the dark, dark past few years that we've all had, so thank you. I also want to thank Melissa for letting me step on stage to briefly jump in as host to introduce our third speaker, Dr. Elizabeth Coleman. She is a medical oncologist at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center with a clinical practice devoted to the treatment of patients with all stages of breast cancer. She's also an assistant professor of medicine at Weill Cornell Medical College, and her work has been funded by BCRF for over a decade. Dr. Coleman's research focuses on understanding the mechanisms of tumor microenvironments that allow breast cancer to grow and metastasize. With her team, Dr. Coleman aims to identify unique biomarkers that can help identify breast cancer at its earliest stage and patients who are at increased risk for metastasis. I am extremely grateful to have Dr. Coleman as my oncologist for the past 2 years. I remember seeing her speak at a BCRF event a few years ago, and I remember thinking, I hope I never need a breast oncologist, but if I do, she's who I'd want. And I think as she speaks today, you'll see that warmth, brilliance, and transparency that she gives to all of her patients. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Elizabeth Coleman to present The Future for Metastatic Breast Cancer, Leveraging the Past to Improve Our Prologue. Thank you.
Oh, so sweet. Thank you for everything. Good evening, everybody. I'm really just so honored to be here. And I was asked earlier, Amanda asked me, why did I want to become an oncologist? And yes, I'm drawn to biology and creative questions and solving problems. But ultimately, as Sally said, it's the stories. It's how the biology lives in each patient so uniquely and so differently. And it's an honor for me to take care of breast cancer patients and hopefully help them, each of them, find their own light and shine bright no matter their diagnosis. So I was charged with talking about metastatic breast cancer tonight. But in light of the idea of stories, I wanted to give you a little bit of a bigger sense of breast cancer, what we know about it, where we've come from, and where we're going. I love this quote by Confucius for obvious reasons. I majored in the history of medicine in college, and it really has always stayed with me how understanding the context of how we understand biology is so critical, that nothing happens in a vacuum, especially science and biology and how it is in people and society. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our past, our present, what we know, what we're living with today, and our hope for tomorrow. So breast cancer is not a new disease. I stumbled upon these pictures, actually, these famous paintings, rather, from the 16th century. And I don't have a little pointer, but you can see this woman's left breast there and the left breast on the other side there. These painters didn't know these women had breast cancer, but there have actually been oncologists that have gone back and said, well, look what's going on there. So this is not, and there's lots of records from Egyptian times and throughout history of how women were treated with breast cancer. And it's quite fascinating to go back in time and think about what we knew then, how we tried to treat it, and how does that really inform what we're doing today? So when we think about some of the cancer debates in recent history, one of the most common questions patients ask me is, why did this happen to me? And so when we think about what we understand of the last 150 years about cancer, well, we've discovered DNA, we've discovered genetic mutations, and that's really important to understand. We've also come to think about, well, there's actually, for some cancers, not breast cancer specifically, but some viruses that can actually cause cancer, and even some bacteria. So maybe we're missing some pathogen that we haven't figured out. And then there's the environment. We talk about this more recently now. What are the toxic chemicals we are being exposed to? What's the pollution? Why did this happen? The reality is, for so many of us, we don't know why, but it's probably that all of this is contributing. Now, I have a slide. This looks a little confusing. It says aging, CHIP, and AML. AML is a leukemia, but this also applies to concepts in breast cancer. CHIP stands for clonal hematopoiesis of indeterminate potential, which relates to mutations that can be found in the immune system, which for time for another talk relates to some of the research that I do, trying to understand how actually mutated white blood cells can contribute to how cancer forms. But as you can see here, there's a lot of different things that go into cancer, including breast cancer, whether it's biological issues, genetic problems, lifestyle factors that we're learning more about, and host factors. And so all of this is new, but also we've kind of known this for a long time. We just didn't have the same technology that we have today. So I have here, if you'll indulge me for a minute, on the left, this was a theory that really lasted for centuries, even 1,000 years. So there was a famous physician named Galen, and he came up with this 4 humors system of why we get sick. And the black there represented black bile, that basically if you had too much bile, that would contribute to a woman getting breast cancer. And on the right here is basically an extension of that there are different temperaments associated with these different types of humors. And actually, if you eat different foods, you can control that, and it relates to what you should eat. Just kind of think about some of those books that we read now that are like, if you have blood type A, you should eat this food, or blood type B. So we're kind of reinventing, in good ways and bad ways, some of the past. But so how do we think about treating breast cancer today? And not so dissimilarly from the past in some ways, we know that we can come up with these big studies where we do evidence-based medicine and standard guidelines. But in reality, we're all deeply, deeply unique people. And as Sally said, with deeply unique stories and needs and wants. And so that translates to very individualized medicine, we hope. So with every new study that comes out, including for metastatic breast cancer, we apply it, but it must be applied with the individual in mind. And so clearly, one size, we know this, does not fit all. We talk about it as if it's some sort of new concept, but it's not like the Egyptians didn't know this. We know that we're all individuals and that we need to be treated as individuals, including for cancer. So historically, now I'm getting to some of the science stuff. For a long time, we thought that the dominant concept in terms of how cancer grows is that it's a loss of normal growth control. One cell divides into 2, divides into 4, you get the picture. And so, well, we should therefore kill these cancer cells. So if you do surgery, it should never come back, right? If women had total radical mastectomies, why does their cancer come back? And of course, we know that this led to a lot of theories that it was a linear path that metastatic disease forms. You have a primary tumor. Perhaps if you left unchecked, it goes to lymph nodes, and perhaps even further, some of those cancer cells could spread to other parts of the body, known as metastatic disease. But it doesn't really make sense, because it would say that if you really just stop it all at the first blush with the mastectomy, we would cure everybody. And we know that that's not true, and we know that the process is not entirely linear. And so throughout history, more recent history with breast cancer, in particular metastatic breast cancer, we've gotten a little bit creative. So this is a young audience. I'm a little older, I feel like now, but everybody recognize Tony Soprano? Okay, so we know like the whole Sopranos. So imagine like cancer is the mafia, okay? And there's a lot of focus. I say this all the time. When I first met my husband, he was a federal prosecutor and did a lot of organized crime prosecution. So I came up with this sort of model back then, but it holds true today. So a lot of times with these big criminal families, you think about, well, who's the really bad guy? Who's the Tony Soprano, right? And cancer's no different. It's a terrible, awful crime that we need to solve so that we can all do something better and have a dance tonight instead of this event. So one thing that's really important, and we know from the Sopranos, is it's not just about that one bad guy. It's about who's making the pasta, who's driving the getaway car, who's embezzling the money. And over the last century, we've become much better at understanding that it's not just about the initial target, but it's also about finding the co-conspirators. Who's helping a cancer grow? What blood vessels are there? What other molecules are fueling it? What's the immune system doing there? And that's really led to so many of the new advances that if I had more time, I'd talk about, but I'll touch upon some of them. So it led to newer theories about a seed-soil hypothesis, where cancer is the seed, and the soil becomes so critical, right? So if you have this plant and it's in a hospitable environment like Florida with lots of sunshine, or take it to Boston, we love Boston, that's where I'm from, but I mean, if it's snowing, it's not gonna grow so well there. Same seed, same criminal, but you got to have all the co-conspirators there to have the cancer grow. And that's where the science has also become so interesting, understanding not just the seed, but the soil. So I'm going to bring it back to a little bit of history. So part of that soil is the immune system. And it's not just about going to some health food supplement store and saying, I want to, boost my immune system, and that's how I'm going to fight a cancer. We know it's far more complicated than that. But over 100 years ago, this woman, Bessie, in New York City, got her hand stuck in a train, thought it was just injured from that, or some sort of door on a train, but actually had a cancer there, had a sarcoma, and she died a tragic death. And this man, Cooley, was sort of obsessed with why did she die and what am I missing here? The man on the right was a different patient at Memorial Sloan Kettering who ended up getting a wildly horrible bacterial infection for which he had sepsis, but his cancer regressed. And this made him passionate, Cooley, about trying to figure out what was it about the infection with these high fevers and the immune response that helped this cancer regress. And he came up with a lot of theories, and one of them called the Cooley's toxin, where he tried to recreate these infections to figure out how is this happening, and perhaps it's a cure for cancer. Well, his theories didn't ultimately pan out, but the ideas remained. Some people held on to them, even as chemotherapy was developed, as radiation was developed, and then of course we saw the revolution initially with melanoma, still at Memorial Sloan Kettering, coming up with incredible advances about how we can arm the immune system. So I'm just going to go back for 1 second. Am I doing okay with time? I'll get through it. We're good? Okay. So with breast cancer, why has it been so challenging with the immune system? One of the things we know is, unlike certain cancers like melanoma, is breast cancers can cloak themselves and make themselves more invisible to the immune system. And one of the things that BCRF has been tremendous in funding is trying to figure out, how do you make a breast cancer that's sort of cloaked and not as visible to the immune system, available to be targeted by some of these immune therapies. So one of the strategies that BCRF has funded is looking at cryoablation, where you freeze a tumor, so you actually expose it to the immune environment so that it can then be amenable to immunotherapies. Other people are looking at radiation, chemotherapy, vaccines. There is so much promise and so much going on. And in light of that, when we think about the immune system, I'm bringing in the cops to the Tony Soprano model. Are you going to hold up a sign for me? 1 minute remaining. Oh my goodness, guys. All right, I'm going to keep going through this. I was going to talk to you about immunotherapy. I'm going to flip through. Give me 3 more minutes. 3 more, okay? Magic bullet to the seed, okay? So there was a fascinating guy, won a Nobel Prize about looking at the concept of a magic bullet. And what's so important is now we think about cancer and trying to understand that as, how do we target the seed with a magic bullet? So I really, really wanted to get to this one point because the key is the hope for tomorrow. And what's happened at ASCO more recently with my colleague, helping to understand what makes the cancer seed so unique. We traditionally classify cancers as ER, PR, and HER2 positive or negative. And since this audience is so critical, I have to mention this. So my colleague Shanu Modi has helped to rethink the idea of what is the target for cancer, particularly HER2 positive cancers. We either said patients were HER2 positive or HER2 negative. This is a brand new treatment that just came out. I was going to walk you through what the magic bullet is, but I'm going to skip through it. You can read the article in the New York Times. But the drug is called Enhertu. And the bottom line is this. 2 more minutes and I'm done. So we used to classify patients as either HER2 positive or HER2 negative. And now we are able to classify patients as HER2 low. So get your pathology reports, especially if you have metastatic disease. This is where the drug applies. If you're HER2 1+ or 2+, this drug will apply to you. It is the first drug to receive a trial to receive a standing ovation in breast cancer since 2005. If you watch the actual video, people are crying and cheering. It's that extraordinary. And the bottom line of this slide is that it indicates that there's an improvement in overall survival for patients that receive this drug. So each and every day they got this, they lived longer. So there's a new algorithm. This is completely practice changing for how we treat breast cancer, in that it's a new drug. And so especially for women who have metastatic disease, it's something that it's really important to talk to with your doctor. I'm finishing up right now. You can start playing the music with the hook. Da, 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 da. All right, so I warned everybody it was going to be a little longer than 10 minutes. So where do we come out with all of this, and why did I bring up the history? So we've been growing plants for a long time. We've been dealing with cancer for a long time. What do we know today? And we know that we have the importance of human connection, whether it's music therapy, dance, being in a group together tonight. Well, we know that we need to target the seed, but we also need to change the soil. We know that exercise is important, but we have studies now from BCRF that are showing even more so why exercise is so critical both for early stage breast cancer patients as well as metastatic patients. We know that what we eat is important, and it's not just about random supplements, as I said, but eating healthy food, non-processed food, and that can be critical. We know that maintaining a healthy weight, the immunotherapy trials, which are so key, and that work being done there, and we're going to hear more science later on. The analysis of the tumor microenvironment, what is the seed in which a cancer grows? We know that trying to classify tumors very, very carefully. I showed you the slide earlier, I rushed through it, but the idea that the way we were thinking about classifying the target before was perhaps wrong, and we needed to look a little bit more closely and a little bit more detailed, and lo and behold, we have a practice-changing new drug as of just this past conference at the American Society of Clinical Oncology. It's truly extraordinary. So with that, these are our goals: improving survival, curing patients. Again, I hope we turn this into a dance party, that we help people live longer, live better, in less fear, with less suffering. And that is really the essence of why I'm so passionate about my work. Thank you so much for the speed version of what I wanted to say, and I really appreciate your time and attention.
Please welcome to the stage TPA Leadership Council members Amanda Quick and Eleanor McEnany.
Truly eye-opening. Thank you, Dr. Komen. I'm Amanda Quick, and with Eleanor McEnany, we are proud members of the Pink Agenda's Leadership Council and Education Committee. I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer less than a year ago, and this community has been a tremendous support. I believe that knowledge is power, and I joined the Pink Agenda this year to contribute to its mission to raise awareness about breast cancer among my peers. We know that breast cancer journeys are unique. Treatments vary from person to person, and friends, family, and even ourselves who are diagnosed may prefer or require different types of support. Breast cancer continues to be the most commonly diagnosed cancer in the world, with nearly 287,000 new cases in the United States last year alone. It's clear that our work is not done yet. More alarmingly, within our community, there was a 32% increase of metastatic cancer diagnosis in women ages 25 to 39 between 2009 and 2015. The Pink Agenda approaches these major problems from two angles: through the research we fund and the educational programming designed to connect with this age group. As we just heard from Dr. Komen, researchers and oncologists dedicate countless of hours to studies that advance groundbreaking therapies and revolutionize standard of care. At the Pink Agenda, we're on a mission to find a cure. And thanks to your contributions, that dream is closer to becoming a reality. Through our treasured partnership with BCRF, we're so proud to fund the work of 4 world-class scientists this year. Because of your support, these researchers have the capacity to recruit more participants for clinical studies that aim to improve survivorship and quality of life after diagnosis. They have more time in the lab to investigate risk factors and the tools to develop more preventative strategies. They will be able to test more innovative ways to harness the body's immune system to stop metastasis, the fatal spread of breast cancer to other parts of the body.
Tonight, we ask you to join us in moving life-saving and life-changing research forward so that the work done by Drs. Komen and Barganetti, who we'll hear from later, so that one day all people diagnosed with breast cancer have a 100% chance of surviving the disease. This is your time to make a change and for the next generation. I ask that you please take out your cell phones to show your support for the Pink Agenda. The amount you donate correlates to the research time that TPA funds. $50 funds 1 hour of research, $500 funds a day of research, and $2,500 a week of research. By following a few simple steps, you can contribute to our mission to make breast cancer history. At any time tonight, you can take out your cell phone, create a new text message. Text the phrase TPA Talks, no spaces, to the number 44321 to receive a secure link to donate. This phrase and phone number is also listed in your program booklet. Your generous gift will not be billed via your mobile carrier. Instead, once you press send, we will share a link that will lead you through the payment process. Who's going to be the first to text their pledge to the Pink Agenda?
All right, so look to the screen to see your donation and the impact you're making tonight. So thank you so far to Samantha Golkin, Erica Starr, Susan McCall, and Erin Goldstein. Your gift is so meaningful in the fight against breast cancer. Every dollar goes a long way in helping us support the most brilliant minds in research. We'd love for everyone in the room to show your commitment. All right, we're still waiting for a few more to come through. So thanks, Nicole, Sarah, Josh. And I would just like to add that, during the intermission and all night long, you'll still be able to donate. So as Eleanor mentioned, make sure you text the phrase TPA Talks, no spaces, to the number 44321 to receive a secure link to donate. Thank you.
Please welcome back to the stage Melissa Berry.
I feel like a school principal. This is funny. Anyway, thank you everyone for joining us again this evening. Welcome back to TPA Talks Live. To kick off the second half of the program, I am very pleased to introduce our next presenter, producer, actress, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and creative consultant, Danielle Lauder. Yes, I love it. I love the enthusiasm. After graduating from Northwestern University in 2016 with a degree in radio, TV, and film, and appearing in films such as The Stanford Prison Experiment, Danielle continues her creative endeavors in Los Angeles, where she now develops and executive produces short-form content. As a former creative consultant and global ambassador to the Estee Lauder companies, Danielle created her Act 4 limited edition makeup collection that was released in January of 2020. As a philanthropist, Danielle serves on the Board of Associates of Hilarity for Charity and the host committee of the Pink Agenda's annual gala. She also served as the ambassador and host to the 2021-2022 Daytime and Hollywood Beauty Awards. Currently, Danielle works in the creative department at Smashbox Cosmetics and Glam Glow as a content developer and project manager, and she recently came on as the beauty director of Los Angeles Fashion Week for N4XT Experiences. Danielle cites a diverse score of inspiring female role models for her inspiring rising career, specifically her great-grandmother, Estee Lauder, who also once had dreams of gracing the silver screen, and her grandmother, Evelyn Lauder, who armed her with indispensable knowledge, which helped foster Danielle's own aptitude and passion for beauty. Here to present Growing Up Giving Back, please join me in welcoming Danielle Lauder.
Hi, everyone. It is an absolute honor to be here. It's pretty wild to be here all these years later, especially after COVID, and I want to thank everyone for having me and for letting me just talk about my experience in growing up and giving back. And I think we all know it all started with my grandmother, Evelyn, who I call Evie, so I'm going to call her Evie. And after she was diagnosed with breast cancer for the first time in 1989, it really inspired her to create something that was more than a community, but something that really had and could make a global impact locally and afar. And she sat down with Larry Norton and wanted to create the Evelyn H. Lauder Sloan Kettering Center that was an all-inclusive, under all one umbrella, that was prevention, diagnosis, treatment support, and really building that community. And her desire and her drive to build that community from the experience that she went through is what catalyzed her amazing success with BCRF and building the pink ribbon and driving awareness. And with awareness comes education, but it was more than that. She really emphasized the importance of you need to have the fundraising to support these researchers, support the scientists, and really create a community that was not just, that was beyond the people that were suffering from it, but the people that could make it preventative. And her goal, and all of our goal, is to find a cure and eradicate breast cancer entirely. In the meanwhile, we have to cultivate and curate a very intricate community of support, and especially for women. And even though it doesn't only just affect women, it's something that is very specific and personal and female to all of us. And with her, from before BCRF and when she started this center, she wanted to create convenience and comfort and have a place where these were the two hallmarks of her breast cancer center, and she wanted to make everyone's experience less daunting. And she wanted to make going through cancer, and for the loved ones of people suffering from breast cancer, she wanted to elevate the level of interaction and the care and community. And to this day, anytime I meet anyone that has suffered from breast cancer or has had a loved one that suffered from breast cancer, they say to me, "Your grandmother, Evelyn, called me when I told a friend of mine I was diagnosed. They called so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so," and I pick up the phone and it's Evelyn Lauder, and she says, "I'm gonna get you the best care possible." And to me, that's one of the most inspiring things in the world. And she was a force of nature, and it's something that carried through from my great-grandmother, and it's what my grandfather and my father has instilled in all of us, and done an amazing job with the companies and with BCRF and the Pink Agenda to really instill in us that anything that you've gone through, anything that you've succeeded in, anything that you've achieved, it's not meaningless, but it is not entirely meaningful unless you give back and do something with it. And as you can see from all these pictures here, just beyond giving back from a corporate or financial standpoint, from personal or company matters, the love and the care that Evie would give to each and every single person is what helped intrinsically build that community that is BCRF and now the Pink Agenda. And I am so honored to be related to her and to carry on the torch in any way possible, especially for the Youth Offset Foundation of what she built with the pink ribbon and so forth, because it's so important to become aware as a young woman or man or anyone, however you identify. It is so important to be aware and educated, and to know that there is a community of care out there. And like people have been saying tonight, you can find some levity or brevity to it. And Evie taught me that more than anyone, and I know it's my grandfather Leonard's favorite story to tell when she was first diagnosed. She was always a little bit of a trickster and a prankster, and she pretended she was really upset one day, and she went to the closet and shut the door and wouldn't talk to my grandfather. And he was like, "Evelyn, Evie, please come out, talk to me, what's going on?" And she had just lost all of her hair, and so she puts on a neon pink jumpsuit, rollerblades, and neon pink alien headband ears. And then she pops out of the closet and goes skating towards me, and she was like, "I'm coming for you." So she always found the light and the laughter that comes with something that can be so hard and difficult, and especially physically. And that's what I really have tried to hold and carry with me as I try and carry a torch for her in any way is that having an organization and a community like the Pink Agenda, especially to educate young women and anyone, is so important. And also to find that community, that care, and bring some laughter, levity, brevity to it. And she used to, with the pink ribbon and with everything, and what the Pink Agenda is doing is that you just need to get the message out there, and you need, with every day a new woman is born, every day another woman goes through puberty, and these things that we wanted for so long, boobs, suddenly become something that, okay, now we have to be wary and maybe be a little afraid of what they can do to our body. And I am so proud of what my family has done, and I hope to continue in their footsteps to carry on the legacy of integrating education and awareness into the corporate values. And I remember my grandmother would put in handwritten pledge cards with petitions saying that I pledge myself to the dedication to eradicate breast cancer with every product that was purchased from an Estee Lauder counter. And she started that initiative within the company, but it's so much more than that. And she taught me, and with my grandfather and my father and everyone after, just how much community matters and how much connection matters. And it's not just about devoting your resources, but devoting your time. And I'm very honored and happy, and I'm very grateful to the Pink Agenda for having me speak tonight and for including me in everything thus far and going forward. And I hope that with every day and every new person that's born or going through anything, we can continue to educate and raise awareness. Thank you.
That was pretty amazing. Danielle, I really loved hearing the story about your beautiful family, and I think many of us in this audience could relate to that hot pink jumpsuit rollerblade moment. I think that is fantastic, and I love that you shared that with us. Danielle, your commitment and leadership in engaging today's generation to make a future impact is a motivation to all. Our next speaker this evening is scientist, educator, and BCRF-funded researcher, Dr. Bill Barganetti. Dr. Barganetti is the Hesselbach Professor of Biological Sciences at the City University of New York, Hunter College, as well as the chair of the Molecular, Cellular, and Developmental PhD subprogram at the CUNY Graduate Center. She is also an adjunct professor at the Weill Cornell School of Medicine. Quite a resume, pretty amazing. Dr. Barganetti is a leader in the area of cancer biology with a focus on the wild type and mutant P53 pathways and their crosstalk modulators, MDM2 and MDMX. She's received many notable awards, including the Presidential Early Career Award for Scientists and Engineers from Bill Clinton in 1997, the New York City Mayor's Award, and Outstanding Women Scientists Award from the Association for Women in Science 2001, Distinguished Alumni Awards from SUNY Purchase and NYU in 2005, I'm not done yet, and was elected to the Bronx High School of Science Hall of Fame in 2017. Here to present PCR or rapid, MDM2 and P53 are important breast cancer targets, Dr. Jill Barganetti.
Thank you. Well, good evening, and thank you all for being here, and thank you for inviting me to speak. It's really my pleasure. So I'm going to give a bit of a biology talk. I'm a biology professor, so I've put this talk together to teach a little bit about the particular pathways that I work on. And as you heard, I've been fortunate enough to be funded by the Breast Cancer Research Foundation for many, many years. I was also fortunate enough to have met Evelyn Lauder and just want to follow up and everything I was hearing, just the most amazing person ever, and would call all of us her doctors, and would say when we would see her, "Here are my doctors." And I remember asking her if she had ever been into a laboratory before, and she hadn't. And she was a graduate of Hunter College, which is where I'm a professor. And so I invited her into the lab, and her enthusiasm for the science, her enthusiasm for understanding the pathways and really learning and watching her look through the microscope was just infectious. And so it's really that drives me every day. It's trying to help people through science, because there really is a lot in science that can push things forward. And at this point, most people know these terms, PCR or rapid, because of what we've gone through with the pandemic. And 5 years ago, if I had said PCR or rapid, no, it would mean nothing to anybody. But now when you say PCR or rapid, people have some general understanding that these are tests. They're tests for a marker. They're tests for something about COVID. So my thought for today was to try to use those terms and bring it around to, PCR or rapid. How can we get these rapid kind of tests to personalize breast cancer treatment? What are the changes, the evolution that happens in that biology, that cancer biology, those cells, that can help us to understand what's going on, that we can actually use to target each person's particular cancer, understanding some of the major drivers that change the cancers to move places. And so my research focuses on two particular biomarkers, MDM2 and P53. And while most people know about BRCA, and it's very common to understand that, a lot of people don't know MDM2 and P53. They're not in the lexicon. But it's my hope that we will move them to be more in the lexicon, where people would say, what's up with my P53? Do you have that PCR or rapid to see what my cancer has? So let me just, let me go back. So how can we move this to be a test where we could just look via either rapid or PCR? And what's the difference between rapid and PCR? And what if we could do this for breast cancer biomarkers? So what's the difference, and what are we talking about when we think about rapid versus PCR? And what are the biological components that we're considering? So there's information flow inside the cell. And that information flow goes something like this. It's a bit like a song, and it's repeated over and over. And it's DNA to RNA to protein. Just DNA, RNA, protein. Again, DNA, RNA, protein. And it happens again and again. And when we talk about the genetic mutations that happen in a cell, we're talking about the DNA. But this DNA then makes this molecule RNA, which is a lot of what, when we do the PCR, we're looking for the genome, but when we do the rapid, we're looking at the protein. And this is happening, and in a cancer cell, when there's a change, that change in the DNA will create potentially a protein that's different. See where I point this. So how can precision medicine start to target these particular sorts of changes? So I need to take a couple steps back for the DNA, RNA, protein to understand the different kinds of cancers that people can have. So precision medicine, when we think about BRCA, we understand, this audience I think very well, that people can inherit one copy of that gene that's already mutated, and they'll go in, they get tested. Do I have that gene, the DNA? But there are very few cancers that actually are from that inherited type of mutation. 5 to 10%. Now, the gene that I study, P53, also falls into that category. However, it additionally, while it can be inherited in some people, it can actually also fall into what's called sporadic. Now, what is sporadic? Huge number of cancers come from these changes which are sporadic. Again, DNA, RNA, protein. So a normal cell, these body's filled with normal cells. And cancer often is a disease that happens with increased aging. So these normal cells are often undergoing changes at the level of the DNA. But very often one change may happen and the immune system may go and get rid of that cell that has that one change. So there's that first mutation. See here, this little white star. So the normal cells will, make more normal cells, but if you get this one mutation, DNA will make RNA, will make protein. These cells will then continue to develop, to divide, and you'll have just that single mutation in that cell's DNA, which will make the RNA, which will make a mutated protein. But generally, that one mutation is not enough to cause a cell to become cancer or to cause a cell to then switch to not know where to be anymore, to become metastatic, right? Because when they become metastatic, they're moving, they just seem to not know their address. They can move, they're just not taking care of staying where they're supposed to be. But now that first mutation, let's say it gets a second mutation. Now we've got a cell that has two different mutations. The DNA now is changed in two different places. And this can go on again and again, where maybe there's a third mutation, there's an evolution, just like with SARS-CoV-2. It evolves. We've got the different variants. So we're getting these variants of the cell that changed once, changes again, changes a third time, changes a fourth time, et cetera, till it does not know where to be. It's proliferating out of control. And so this gene that I study, the P53 gene, we have sometimes people inherit the mutation, but sometimes people just get it sporadically. And this 80% sporadic, in fact, P53 can be found mutated in over 50% of all cancers. But when we think about focusing on breast cancer, I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens when it changes. So it's really a story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And many people know this story. The story is this strange case where Dr. Jekyll is, and Mr. Hyde are the same person, but it's this complexity of the duplicity of you can have these two different personalities when there's a little change. So Dr. Jekyll is a very kind, well-respected physician, but wants to dabble in something to change his nature, and changes his nature so that it becomes this awful personality. Well, it's the same with these genes, this DNA to RNA to protein. So you can have that normal gene that actually is doing a really good thing. It's a really kind gene that makes a kind RNA, that makes a kind protein. And in the case of P53, it's called a tumor suppressor. And it is so important. Actually, when you go out in the sun and you tan, that is your P53 response. You go out in the sun, you get some DNA damage. That's what UV does. That's why you have to wear your sunblock. But you get that, and it turns on this response, and the P53 does the things it does, and there's a tanning response. Well, it's a good guy because it's keeping things, it's basically giving this stop signal. Stop, there's a little damage, stop, let's repair, stop. However, when it gets mutated, it changes to this bad nature. So not only does it lose that stop, it actually begins to give a go signal. It's this stop versus the go. It's the yin versus the yang. When you get these DNA changes, sometimes it changes not just that you lose a function, but you gain a new function. And that's the case with this mutant P53. And so our work in the lab is trying to figure out, okay, now you've changed it, and actually not only do you change it, but now there's more of it in the cell. So how can we use this as a personalized therapy to find these cells that have this mutant P53? When they have it, they become more aggressive, they metastasize more. So how can we utilize that? I'm going to skip over the MDM2 for a minute. So in breast cancer, there are a number of different subtypes. There are the ER positive, progesterone positive. These kind of fall into the luminal B. And so these are markers. These particular proteins, again, DNA, RNA, proteins. So the estrogen receptor, it comes from a gene, makes that RNA, makes that protein, and that protein now can bind to estrogen and do things. And that protein can be detected and seen inside cells. And so when somebody is told that their cancer is estrogen receptor positive or progesterone receptor positive, what has been done in the process of detecting that is seeing that they have lots of that protein. They have more of that protein than the person who doesn't have that cancer. And so that's one way to detect. HER2, again, detecting that protein. So in these particular types of breast cancer, you can see that there's lots of these proteins, either the estrogen receptor or the progesterone receptor or the HER2 receptor. However, in triple-negative breast cancer, which can be very aggressive, it's more difficult to treat because it doesn't have these markers on the outside or on the inside that can be targeted with these therapies that then go bind to these molecules and inhibit them. So they're called, because they don't have these, they're called triple negative. They don't have either the ER, the PR, or the HER2. But what do they have, right? I mean, if we're going to talk about a precision medicine approach, we have to figure out what do they have. Well, in triple negative breast cancer, 80% of the time they have those changes to P53. 80% of these triple negatives are expressing this Mr. Hyde, this bad guy. In addition, many of them have also gained the MDM2. So as I said, I study these two, and I try to determine ways that we can find these. We can use them as a time bomb for the breast cancers that have them, and trying to change the language from triple negative to these are P53 positive. Let's see if they're P53 positive. Let's do that rapid or PCR and see, do they have this mutant P53? Let's go in and figure that out. And then other things for MDM2, which I don't have time to talk about today. So I decided to focus in on this, but to leave you with that thought of these are markers, these are important biomarkers that, should you be speaking to somebody or speaking to your doctor, things to ask, because oncologists know these terms, but the general population doesn't necessarily know P53 and MDM2. These are giving a go signal. Go proliferate, go move someplace else, go. It's the Mr. Hyde, go. It's a bad scenario. So what is it that we look for in my lab? On a kind of simple level, we've made a molecule that has what we call a fluorophore. We can actually make it so we can detect. It'll give a light. It's like when people go for a PET scan. You can see it. You put a radioactive sugar in, and you can see it goes to the cancer. But it's not so specific for what kind. We're trying to do it really specifically. Let's find that P53. So we linked this with something else so that we can get it inside the cell, and it has a particular structure, so it will actually form a complex with that mutant P53. And in the breast cancers that have mutant P53, the level of mutant P53 is particularly high. Whereas in cells that don't have mutant P53, that P53 is degraded by something called a proteasome. So these cells wouldn't have it, these cells would. Can we detect the cells that have the mutant P53? And so in order to do this, we do a lot of work using different kinds of models. We do it in human cancer cells. We put those human cancer cells into mouse models, and then we can put these molecules then into the mouse and see, does this work? And we do a lot of different studies trying to figure out ways to target these cancers that have this mutant P53. And we have some that are looking very promising. But I just want to show you this particular one. I have one more minute? Oh, okay, so I'm almost done. So this molecule then will interact in a complex way with this, what we call a oligomerization domain. It forms a 4-member structure, and we can get this molecule to go and form that structure. And what you can see here basically, this is a nucleus. This is the DNA in the blue. And if the cell doesn't have the mutant P53, we don't see much of it. And if the cell has it, we see a lot of it. And if we do this study in a mouse, here's an ER positive, which, there's lots of ways to test for ER positive. You can see the tumor here, but that tumor doesn't light up. And here's the triple negative, and you can see that tumor lights up, and we can see that tumor in the mouse. And so a lot of what we are working on are figuring out ways to detect these, be able to go find them when they're in the tumor, and then also be able to go find them when they're in a metastasis. And so I know my time is up. Thank you for your attention. I really just want to give a huge shout out to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. A lot of people help us to support this work, but the Breast Cancer Research Foundation has believed in our work for a really long time and helped me to get my lab really focused on breast cancer, and I just want to thank them and thank all of you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Barganetti. I mean, that was so amazing. Can we hear, what a lineup of incredible people tonight. Incredible. I just have to say, there's so much to be learned still about breast cancer, and I didn't know, when I was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer that there were even different types. So thank you, Dr. Barganetti, for being a tireless researcher in the field, because that's the only way that we can really eradicate this disease. Our next presenter is certified physical therapist and professional yoga therapist, Amy Shapsis. Amy is the founder and owner of Flow Physical Therapy, an integrative physical therapy practice based in New York City. With over 20 years of experience, she has devoted her practice to prevention, rehabilitation, and wellness. Driven by the deep connections and long-lasting relationships she develops with her patients, Amy is particularly passionate about patient care and creates individualized treatment plans that include medical therapeutic yoga and evidence-based yoga, resulting in long-lasting and overall more effective patient outcomes. An advocate of the breast cancer and medical communities, Amy spends time continuously learning, educating, driving awareness at local fundraisers and hospital functions. Here to present Physical Therapy, a missing and invaluable piece of the breast cancer journey, Amy Shapsis.
Thanks, Melissa. I'm honored to be here tonight with all of you, and I give a shout out to my patients who came to support me here. Next slide. So today I'll talk about physical therapy, a missing and invaluable piece of the breast cancer journey. Next slide. Over 10 years ago, a patient came into my practice. She shared her story with me, how she found out about her diagnosis. We talked about her pain and discomfort, her life, her family support, her connections, the things that she wanted to get back to, the things she wanted to enjoy again. And then it was time to get her on the table. I had her change into a gown to do the physical exam. I looked at her range of motion, her flexibility, and then I looked at the surgical site, and I placed my hands on her. She said to me, "You are the first one to touch my breast since my surgery." I had just learned that her surgery was 5 months ago. At that moment, it helped to validate what I already knew, that we're not doing enough for women with breast cancer. Next slide. In the beginning, when I was first starting to advocate for women going through breast cancer, overall health and wellness, I was in a lot of lunch meetings, breast cancer, tumor boards, trying to get the message across in all the different ways physical therapy can help. It was sort of falling on deaf ears. It was just another thing the patient had to do. But there was this one plastic surgeon that always referred to me and still does today. I went up to her and I said, "What is it that you know that I do, that you know to refer to me?" And she said, "Honestly, I'm not exactly sure what you do or how you do it. All I know is that patients feel better after they see you." Next slide. One of the reasons why patients feel better is because of the human touch. We know in all different patient population settings that the human touch is healing, whether they're infants in the intensive care unit getting held to thrive, or patients or people who are crying and you innately put your hand on their shoulder. Human touch helps the same way for women with breast cancer by boosting the immune system, improving mood, decreasing heart rate and blood pressure and respiratory rates, fatigue, and pain. Next slide. So I think that we all understand what physical therapy is in the world of low back pain, sports injuries, orthopedic surgeries like total hip and knee replacements. But somehow, when it comes to a woman who has to endure treatment, surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, and all of the side effects that have an impact on how she feels, how she moves, and how she navigates healthfully throughout her life, we are not putting the pieces together. Physical therapists fill in the gap between health and healthcare, the space between living and living well. We are licensed healthcare professionals that are recognized by insurance companies as experts in everything pertaining to how the body moves, works smoothly and efficiently prior to and after surgery, as well as throughout the lifespan. We are educators who act as conduits through doctor and patient and overall health and wellness. Next slide. It wasn't until I started seeing women with breast cancer that I knew traditional physical therapy would not touch the pain and loss she was feeling. I had been practicing yoga for years and felt the benefits, so I started to sprinkle some of the ideas, the philosophies, the meditation, the breath work into the treatment session. And over the next 20 years, or the last 20 years, I've sharpened those skills and have gotten certified in medical therapeutic yoga with Dr. Ginger Garner. This is an evidence-based, science-backed yoga, and by bringing these two together seamlessly, not only do patients feel better physically, but emotionally as well. Next slide. For many, this is a traumatic experience, so you want to make sure you're seeing the right physical therapist. We know that trauma directly impacts the physical and the mental well-being of the person, and that we can hold traumatic events in our bodies. At this time, patients report feeling isolated, feeling demoralized, robbed of their identity and confidence and sexuality. This is what you want physical therapy to look like. You want to feel connected, safe, and cared for. You want someone that uses the biopsychosocial model of care, where we're looking at the entire person, not just the physical body, but what their connections are, what they find joy in, what they have passion for, what they want to get back to, what their hobbies are, how they're sleeping, what their stress at work is. You want to learn about your body and how to keep it feeling safe, that each system is part of a greater whole that keeps us healthy, physically healthy, and emotionally strong. That hands-on treatment is an integral part of the treatment plan, not only because it helps to release scar tissue, fascial restrictions, and mobilize incisions, but because it's healing and supportive. Next slide. Through medical therapeutic yoga, I teach breath work, meditation, movement, and lifestyle counseling, right? We're all talking about decreasing risk of recurrent and how important of recurrence, and it's so important to continue movement and exercise and doing the things you love to do. It's important that we bring the mind, body, and spiritual connection to yourself and others needs to be cultivated, and that the journey of life, especially during this time, can be slow, and you need to look at it as a marathon and not a sprint. And though sometimes change is slow, this is the time you need to have the most compassion for yourself. And that self-care, daily self-care, is absolutely paramount to your healing. And that by learning about your body, you can begin to trust it again. Next slide. A patient shared, "I had no idea I was going to feel like this, that there would be continued lifelong changes in how I moved and how I saw myself." Next slide. So these next 3 slides are a bit overwhelming. I think I did this on purpose because the journey through breast cancer is overwhelming. I want to just talk about 4 important entry points for physical therapy to be part of the overall plan, to be part of the team approach to helping women with breast cancer through the journey and beyond. My first goal is to see patients preoperatively. If we can get a baseline of what they look like, feel like, what their range of motion is, if they can start to understand their body in a different way, if during those times I put my hands on my patient's body and I do the things that I would do to them in our treatment sessions, and sometimes they're already tender in those areas that they're going to have pain in. This takes the edge off the fear of the surgery and what to expect. There's lots of education on some gentle exercises, and I love to leave them with a guided meditation in preparation for their surgery. The next point of entry is post-operatively, when the drains are out. Patients are afraid to move. I think 2 or 3 weeks, doctors will say, "Okay, you can go back to the gym now." And patients look at me and say, "How am I going to ever go back to the gym? I can't even move my arm." So really starting to understand your body, getting the hands-on work that you need to start feeling safe and being confident in moving and getting back to all the exercise that you enjoy. Next slide. The other entry points are before radiation. Patients will come to me and say, "My doctor referred me because I can't get my arm over my head enough to get that radiation treatment." We really need to see patients in the beginning be proactive, be preventative in any way that we can get them back to their life and recovery. Start to talk about lymphedema precautions and what to look for in this, because those who have had a mastectomy, lymph node dissection, and radiation are a greater risk for lymphedema. And another time, next slide. Another entry point that's helpful is at the end of maybe their year of treatment, right? It's never, there's always great points for physical therapy, but after their year of treatment, when they're on their hormonal therapy and the risk of osteoporosis hanging over women's heads who are forced into menopause, physical therapy can help to educate on weight-bearing exercises, core strengthening, weight training, and nutrition, some supplements, vitamin D and calcium. The point is that healthcare should be proactive and preventative, and it's very frustrating when patients come to me in pain and discomfort, when we know that we can help patients all the way along the way. There needs to be a multidisciplinary team approach in caring for these women. Next slide. So patients come into my office and tell me stories about getting second and third opinions from medical oncologists and plastic surgeons. I think one of the reasons why we're getting second and third opinions are because they're in the gray area and they're not really sure which way to go, and they need a little bit more information and a little more knowledge. But I think other reasons is they're looking for someone that inspires confidence, right? They feel connected to. You want to choose your physical therapist the same way. You want them to specialize in seeing in women with breast cancer. You want them to have continuing education courses like breast cancer rehab, lymphedema education, and manual techniques. You want the care to be one-on-one and a 50-minute session. In that time, my patients share all of their concerns. They're vulnerable, they share their fears, and in that time, there's so many layers to this illness. It's not just the physical body, so being able to share and all of those things is really healing and helpful. The last thing you want to think about is you want someone, a provider, that thinks outside the box, because there are so many different changes throughout the breast cancer journey and beyond, that you want someone who has so much tools in their toolbox to be able to help you. I have treated women for over 20 years with breast cancer. I am honored to be part of their journey. I am inspired every day by their strength, their resilience, their courage, their vulnerability. Yogic philosophy teaches that the path toward happiness is ending other people's suffering. And I am my happiest at work. Next slide. I'd like to end with this testimonial. The doctors saved my life, but Amy Shapsis gave it back to me. It could be any breast cancer specialists. The point is that we need to give more care and help and all the care that we can for women going through breast cancer so we can help them heal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. I love how you underscored the importance of self-care. Breast cancer is complicated, and it doesn't end with chemotherapy and surgery. There are so many components, so thank you for breaking it down for us and letting us know that there are so many options out there for us to complete our circle of healing. Our final speaker this evening is actress, comedian, author Caitlin Brodnick. Caitlin performs sketch, stand-up, and storytelling regularly in New York and LA. She's a writer for Glamour.com and a blogger for the Huffington Post. Caitlin is a breast cancer previvor, and in her book, Dangerous Boobies, Breaking Up With My Time Bomb Breasts, she goes in depth about her experience from testing positive for BRCA1 to a preventative mastectomy and on to recovery. She created the Emmy Award-winning docuseries Screw You Cancer with Glamour magazine, which won for using the power of television and video media to bring awareness to important social issues. She also works closely with the organization FORCE and Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center as a breast cancer awareness advocate, helping to connect with other women who are BRCA positive. Caitlin is also a very dear friend of mine who I met years ago at a breast cancer fashion show fundraiser, and tonight is actually our reunion. Closing the show with Dangerous Boobies, please give a warm welcome to my beautiful friend, Caitlin Brodnick.
My entire family has been affected by cancer. Since I was born, it was like this thing that was just hovering over my family, and this fear for everyone. I just can't do it any longer. I have chosen to go through with a double mastectomy, preventative double mastectomy, with
And we're fine. We're fine. Oh my God. I'm so happy to be here. You're all very attractive, and that's what's important. I'm so grateful to talk at TPA Talks. This is incredibly cool, and I am underqualified, but I am a comedian, so we're going to bluff. Okay, we're all into this. Thank you guys for watching that tiny little clip. It's so bizarre to see this because I'm nowhere in that thought process, in those worries, in those fears. And if anyone has gone through literally anything, you could be in line at the post office and you're like, this will never end. And you get that dread feeling, like, I see that lady. She's got a package that's not taped up. I'm gonna be here for 5 hours. It's never gonna be over. And not to make light of how I felt when I was diagnosed with BRCA, but that's how it felt. It felt unending. It felt that there was not even the glimmer at the end of the day was like, then I don't have breasts that I've always had and I identify with. It was so confusing. But I can say that it's remarkable how little I care and think about it. It's really what I want. There's so many things that we're all doing. You guys, you're here. You've all, I'm sure, managed to battle, avoid, diverge from cancer and COVID. You guys are superheroes. What are you doing? I'm so impressed. Because my story isn't unique at all. We all have family members. We all have a history of loving someone, being with someone, caring for somebody with cancer, or trying to avoid cancer ourselves. And when I was born 9 months after my aunt died at 27 years old of breast cancer. So I was born in my very loving, incredible Jewish family, said I was her reincarnation. That's a lot of shoes to fill, specifically a lot of boobs to fill for a child, and it was always a part of our life. It was the big pink elephant in the room. And when my dad, he was so young, he was like 25 at the time. And so we know this back in the late 80s, early 90s, we knew a lot about breast cancer, but there wasn't exactly everything we knew about it. So he, at the time, thought, well, maybe if we were all in shape and we were really healthy, then we wouldn't get breast cancer. Or if we ate these specific things, then we wouldn't get breast cancer. And he offered himself up to science at Johns Hopkins University because he's a medical man. He's a physical therapist, not like a medicine man. And he found out that he was positive for the BRCA gene, and it was such a relief. It was this feeling that we weren't making it up. It wasn't insane that all of our family members have quickly died. We're Jewish, so we're always afraid of the next Holocaust, and then it's like, is cancer that? I don't know. But it was just bonkers, and he asked me to get tested. And I was like, at the time, I'm 21 years old, I'm in New York City, I've watched way too much Sex and the City alone in my dorm room. I'm eating marshmallows off of my neck so that I don't have to move. I'm piling marshmallows on my face to just eat them and relax. And I wanted to meet some hot, cute guys. I didn't want to know if I had a likely chance of dying of breast cancer. Of course, it's been following me around forever. I also had huge tits, real big guys, enormous. And they were a fan favorite, I'll say. They applauded for me when I had sex. It was so nice. It was like they were around, they were abundant. My husband said when he first saw them, he believed in God. So they did their job. I got the guy. No, I'm kidding. I cried so many times begging him to marry me. That's how I got the guy. That's the trick they don't teach you. Just be very codependent and he falls in love with you. So I was like, these breasts are so big. I was always also trying to cover them up because I didn't want to be sexualized. It's fun. I'll see women that choose to get breast implants, or I'll see a woman who puts in an extra cup. And I'm like, wow, she's choosing to be sexualized when she wants to on her time. Mine was you wake up in the morning and tits are in everyone's face. It used to be Katie with the big boobs. That's how they would describe me. And not only were these boobs huge, but I hated them. I was like, this is not going to end well, guys. I see the journey. We're all going to perish. So I I hated these breasts. I hated them on me. I am an actress, and I was doing my auditions, and I was then trying to cover up with a blazer and trying to cover up with more things, and then I really should have only been cast as like sad senior citizen homeless woman. Like it was all very, no shade to any sad senior citizen homeless woman. She's doing the best she can. But I didn't want to look that way at 26 years old. So I avoided it. I avoided it so hard. And then finally my dad said, can you just get the test? Can you just find out if you have it or not? And my sister got the test. And of course she was negative because she's like super perfect. She always picks the best birthday card and she has car insurance. I mean, she's such a good sister. She's the good one. And I finally got tested, but I will be completely honest with you. What I was hoping, I was telling my doctor this, it was 2007, I was explaining like, I have this very high risk of breast cancer, but I really want to know if I have a gluten allergy. And she was like, I want to rewind the tape. You just told me about all of these family members who had sudden cancers, pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, like it's the gamut, and you just want to talk about your grain intake. And it's true, because I knew one girl who had a gluten allergy and she was really skinny. I was like, that's how you get there. I was just out of college, TikTok wasn't invented yet, so I wasn't able to watch some amazing doctor dance and tell me how to lose 10 pounds. So I was really hoping for the gluten allergy, and she said, no, we're going to test you to see if you're BRCA. And I will speed this up because, like everyone, there's nothing. The shock when somebody sits you down, when a doctor sits you down and talks to you about your medical future, about your diagnosis, about what could happen in your future, it can't give you anything else but a moment of panic, of sweating, of just sitting there going, you have no control over it. When they tell you you have a BRCA diagnosis or any sort of diagnosis or a likelihood, or your child has a likelihood, there's zero control in that moment, and it feels paralyzing. And I found out I was positive for the BRCA gene, but honestly, so did Angelina Jolie at that same time, and her boobs are very famous, and we have the same genetic mutation, so we're twins. Guys, we're twins. And she's avoiding Brad Pitt, and I'm avoiding credit card debt. So we're so similar. But when I did find out I was BRCA positive, I freaked out and got drunk for 3 years. Really drunk, like so badly drunk. And then I realized that's like called running away. That's a panic attack for 3 years. And I talked to my husband, and I said, I think I might want to get a mastectomy, because a doctor told me that really good candidates for not getting the mastectomy, for doing screenings and not doing something preventative, are people that are very comfortable being patients. And I'm the worst patient because I don't go to the doctor. That's the worst patient. The patient who constantly calls up and is like, I have a root canal with another doctor. I'm so sorry. That's not really a great patient. I thought I was really good, but you gotta show up. You gotta show up to be a patient. So he said, I'm so relieved, because all you do is talk about dying of breast cancer all day long, mainly during brunch. Anytime we had a brunch, he would sit down and say, let's just first not talk about cancer or babies, okay? Can we just start there? And I granted him that because, we were living together, we're in love, and when you're in love with me, you're in love with my anxiety. It's like a full circle. So I decided to get the surgery, and the minute I decided to get it, I wanted to get it immediately. Like, it was time to go. But what I knew is that I wanted really new breasts, like tiny breasts. Like, it was DIY time to the max, DIY on crack. I could pick whatever breasts. I had these lumbering, heavy breasts, but I wanted breasts that were like a Russian ballerina's imagination, like just like a fluid, like breasts that could come and go with the breeze, breasts that were tiny enough to be like in a tiny tank top, and then she could be brought out if she was being an Edwardian princess in a TV show. I don't know. I had a lot of titty fantasies. And when I had the surgery, my doctor said, you should probably go a little bit larger from the implant that I had. And I was like, no. I know myself. We've had large breasts for years. We're gonna stay small. But when the swelling goes down a year later and your tits look sad, you're gonna get that surgery. And I did. My first surgery, my boobs looked so sad. They looked like two sad emoji eyes that were like a sad, smiling, winking face. And that's fun, you know, if I was like an avant-garde artist doing a performance piece in the Lower East Side, but I wanted fun tits. And it's so funny, you get to pick whatever kind of boob you want. I was like, do I want the ski slope 70s porn tit, or do I want the big, huge, fun 80s tit, or do I want itty bitty Coachella boobies? Like, the possibilities are endless. They're endless. Whose nipples do I want? That's a whole nother thing. So I had so much fun breast that I was not able to do a nipple sparing surgery, which is what one of the options are. So we had to create a nipple from scratch, which makes you feel very needed. Like, from your own body, they're creating a nipple. I was like, I am so useful. They can take your nipple up and they can fold it and make an origami little thing, and you just feel very special. Or they can take it from your inner arm and they can tattoo it. They can take it from your inner thigh. They can take it from your lady part. And when the doctor tells you that, you have permission to faint. It's totally normal. And I still have not been able to pick a nipple, because nipples are they'll be with you forever. Like, do I want a nipple that I'm gonna grow old with, so that when I'm in the nursing home, I can be like, yeah, see, I knew it was coming? Or do I want like a hot toddy nipple that looks like it's like constantly trying to break out and talk to you? What kind? I can't decide. I want, like, if I had a Kardashian nipple, like, that would just be exhausting. You know, like, that would just be like so much screen time and just so hitting you over the head with every new thing. And then a Beyonce nipple is amazing, but I would feel that I need to start a movement. You know, you can't sit still with those. I can't do it. I cannot do it. I was thinking I'd want Oprah's nipples, because those are nipples that have really like traveled the world and helped a lot of people, and now they're settled back in her huge mansion and she's enjoying her life and people come to her. So that's sort of the gravitas of a nipple I would love, but we still haven't picked one. So I have all of this. I have the surgery and I do the documentary and I write a book, because no one is talking about this. During the entire time, all I wanted to know was like, what was your sex life after surgery like? Did you feel that you gave your husband a bait and switch? Or was dating awkward? Or did you love that you could wear bikinis finally? I had so many questions. I just wanted that girlfriend to sit next to me and tell me, this is normal that you're feeling this way. This is silly and this is stupid. It was such a bizarre revelation too after I had the surgery, that it was a gift I could give my dad, which is weird and creepy and like sounds gross, but he was so afraid of us in our lives, our whole lives, of getting cancer, that I could say, I've taken this pain and this stress away from all of us. And he did breathe a little bit more easily. He feels better. I'm BRCA1, so there's still a risk for ovarian cancer, you know, because my body just won't quit. But I'm going to deal with that a little bit later. I'm choosing to happily not do it by being a drunk like I used to, but by coming to that point when it's time. I'm not going to focus on it right now. When the need is there, I will. And I have a beautiful son who's 4 years old, and he's going to grow up with a mom who is letting strangers touch her boobs in a fun way, and he's also not allowed to touch other people's boobs, so it's confusing, but it's fine. It's totally fine. And, you know, he's going to ask me lots of questions like, Mom, why are you talking to that lady? Why are you dancing or jumping up and down to show somebody how buoyant you are? And it's going to be great. And I'm just going to tell him, I love you. I did all of this for the moment to try and be as healthy as I could, to handle my anxiety at the moment. I wasn't going to the doctor. I wasn't going to be a good patient. And the reason I don't have nipples is because your mother has commitment issues. And that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much.
Please welcome back to the stage TPA President Nicole Seagriff and Vice President Samantha Golkin-Nigliazzo.
Well, thank you, Caitlin. We know breast cancer is a really heavy topic, and so we wanted to end with a little levity and humor, and thank you for bringing that. So as was said, I'm Nicole Seagriff. This is Samantha Golkin. We are co-chairs of tonight's event, and we serve as president and vice president of the Pink Agenda's board of directors. And we just really wanted to thank all of you for joining us tonight for the Pink Agenda's annual TPA Talks. We hope that you leave here not only feeling informed and empowered, but proud to support TPA and the work that we're funding. This event was made possible by our sponsor, Kendra Scott, who has been a very continuous and generous donor to the Pink Agenda. We'd also like to thank our brilliant and inspiring lineup of speakers, our fantastic host, Melissa, all who have generously lent their time and talents to be with us this evening. Their commitment to the cause, to the breast cancer community, is really beyond measure, and we're incredibly grateful. A special thank you also to our friends at the Sheen Center. They have provided us with great hospitality as they have in the past. They've been very patient with our COVID postponement, and we really want to thank in particular Victoria and Joe.
And this event would not be possible without Pink Agenda's Education Committee, who has worked tirelessly to ensure that tonight was a success, including Pamela, Briar, Audra, Natalie, Maggie, Judy, Jonathan, Ellie, Melissa, and Erica. And a very special thank you to Amanda and Eleanor, who you heard from earlier this evening. Finally, and I can't underscore this enough, a very big thank you to the team at the Pink Agenda, Sarah Ecken, John Kyatt, and our amazing volunteers. And if you'd like to learn more about the Pink Agenda or how you can get involved, please see them in the lobby. We hope to see you at events throughout the year, including TPA at the ball game next Tuesday, where the New York Yankees take on the Tampa Bay Rays, and at our annual gala, mark your calendar, for Thursday, October 6th at Tribeca Rooftop. Together, we are making a difference for ourselves and for the next generation, and we thank you for coming tonight, and please enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.